shot. You physically couldn't hold me, I don't care if you pushing 40. You can never little bro me. Euro step like Ginobili, from young OG to the OG. From nosebleeds to floor seats. Circle stronger than Cuban links. My gold dance, your gold plated. You verse me, now that's a reach. We ready? Who ready?
Brother Benny, you muted.
The mute monster got me. All right, so let's try that again. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 101 Sports Show here on the Black Man Unfiltered Network. Certainly make sure as you come in tonight, make sure you hit the like button as you come in tonight. Good to have everyone here on this Wednesday, this third month in March, as we get into March Madness and all the sporting events that are going on. Lots of transactions in the NFL going on at this time. But again, it's good to be here with you guys on this evening. Again, waiting for the other guys to show up. Hopefully they get the link and be up here showing up. But before we get started, Coach, how are you doing, sir? What's going on?
I'm okay, man. It's Wednesday, hump day. Got some good rest. 8, So I'm feeling good, man. We might get some bad. We had some hail come through here, man. What was that, Saturday night? My pickup got a hard cover, but it's soft. It's like a nylon top, just fabric over the metal, right? Man, that hail shattered that little stuff.
Oh, no.
It shattered the whole sheet. So just doing the claim. But everything else, the roof was nice, and that's all I was worried about. And wasn't too much. I don't leave stuff outside, so ain't nothing fly away or nothing.
I heard that. Yeah, we had some windstorms that came through here. I know my neighbor's friends got knocked down, so he's going to have a bill on his hands to take care of that. But, just some broken branches here and there, but nothing too severe in the area. But good to be with you this evening. So, again, we are at that time of year. So we got March Madness that's, certainly taking place at the moment. Let me just share if I can. We'll start out with that, and then we'll get into the NFL and then, the other segments of the show. Let me see if I can share this. All right, so we have the opening, actually for the women's bracket. Let's start there first, since women's action is obviously getting a lot more play this year, in certainly in recent years than last. So you have UCLA as, don't tell me I'm going to have to go to the next one here. So you got UCLA, I believe that's South Carolina. They're the number one seeds in their respective branches. I think UCLA got the overall number one seed, so I know there was some controversy that South Carolina should have been the number one overall seed in the tournament, but they didn't get that. If I move down, the number two seeds, Duke and NC State, and then you have in the other brackets, Texas and USC. They're also in their brackets as well. So again, we got some major stars, obviously, with Staley and her program. Obviously they're gonna have some stars there. USC, they have obviously the best player going into the draft, this coming summer. So, certainly looking forward to, what the ladies put together. But definitely I'll be watching. On the men's side. Okay, so again, we got my man coming up soon. So good. On the men's side, here you have what I got here. That's the second half of the bracket. So here's the men side. So Auburn and Duke have number one seeds. Now Duke is going to be a little bit, of a concern, because obviously their main player is Cooper Flagg. Yeah, he got injured going into tournament play. We'll see if he's going to be at full strength coming out of that. But I think the big controversy that we kind of started the show with was I just quickly go through the bracket. So again, you got Duke and, like I said, Auburn, the number one seeds in their East and South divisions, and then you have Florida and Houston. Both of these teams 30-win teams. So we haven't seen a Houston team like this since me and you we go back, Coach, So remember Phi Slamma Jamma. Yes, back in 80, 82, upset loss to that might have been. I have to put those guys on probably one of the most disappointing because they had some they should have won. I mean, obviously NC State was a great upset. Jimmy Valvano running around after his players, and then the Jimmy V Foundation, all that. That team had so much talent. It had Elijah, had Drexler, it had so many guys on that team. That's one of those teams, a team that should have won a championship, but didn't. So I don't know. Do you have any other teams of that era?
I would say the Villanova Georgetown.
Yeah. But at least Georgetown won one. See, I'll give it to Georgetown.
Even in that game, I'm just saying but Georgetown could have won 2 or 3, but remember they was dominating and
they were. Oh yeah, the Hoya paranoia.
That Villanova was a hell of an upset.
And that changed so much in that that it changed the rules because that's when the NCAA the next year they put in the 45-second shot clock because that whole strategy for Villanova was just keep away. It was a hard game to watch. I got to admit that even though it was exciting and that you thought Georgetown was gonna pull it out, but very difficult. I mean, they're literally holding the ball for like 5 seconds. Then they passed the ball to the other side of the court for another 5 seconds. So it was So they were way behind in terms of getting that. And again, it's a 45-second. Now it would be interesting if they dropped it down. Now, is it still 45 seconds now? Or is it 30?
30, 40. I don't know. I thought
they should just make it all. Honestly, I think for the good of the game period, they should just make everything. They should just make everything 24-second shot.
No, that's too. You have to have it separate, especially in college. You have to be able to slow it down because college game is a little bit more articulated than NBA. NBA is a little bit more freestyle, but the college game involves coaching. So I would, if anything, I would go with 35 seconds. I don't know if it's more than about 30, but 35 seconds is good. But yeah, college is just you have to keep it sort of away from the NBA style.
We have our guy Dante in the building tonight. What's going on, sir? How are you?
What's going on?
Good to see you. Good to see you. So, what's your thought on this? We're talking old basketball here. So, we're going back 40 years ago. Georgetown, Villanova, upset of the decade, certainly for sure in college basketball. And you basically had a situation where Villanova basically held the ball the whole game, and the next year they instituted a 45-second shot clock. I think it's down to, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's down to 30 seconds now on the shot clock. 30. So what's your play? Do you think they should take it down to 24?
I don't want to take it down to 24. The only thing I want to do is, I'm with you, Coach Bird. Don't make it too much like the program, except for, I want to say, who was it? Jay Billis was saying that, hey, man, this is the only game in all of basketball in which you play 2 halves instead of quarters. Mm-hmm. In the quarters, if they're going to keep it with the 2 halves, then they need to change the foul rule to where in the first 10 minutes of the half, essentially like quarters, your fouls replenish in the second 10 minutes because, if you get a guy, your star player, let's say Cooper Flag was healthy, and he gets a couple of fouls. Because growing up, I know I wasn't there for the Georgetown Villanova, but I was there for a lot of upsets where guys had big men, and it's just like, hey, we got great guards, get them in trouble, put them on the bench, get a lead, stay competitive in the game, and then their aggressiveness is gone when they come in the second half, later in the first half or in the second half with a lot of fouls, and then that's how the upsets used to be. A lot of upsets I remember growing up seeing. My dad would point that out to me. So I think to make it a little bit more balanced, I would like to see the 5 fouls. Yeah, you keep those, but you switch it, either go to quarters or do, like I said, and put the fouls there. I don't want to see a 24-second shot clock just to keep a little bit of separation. Just like there's some things in college football that are separate than the NFL, the way things are run, even though, you're chasing it. And on the NFL side, they're chasing to be like it, to make the players transition easier. Whereas it's a totally different game when guys go from college to pro. Because it's like, hey, like you said, Coach Bird, the coaches are the stars still, and they will choke the life out of the game and, time out it up and run a million plays. So, you don't want to take their influence out of the game by doing it that way. So I'm cool with it, keeping it at 30. I was happy when they switched to 30.
I got you. We kind of got on this because we were talking about Houston. This is the first time Houston's been relevant in the tournament since going back to 5 Slamma Jamma days. Hakeem Olajuwon, so all the chats. First of all, shout out to the chat. Shout out to CJ Wilkins. Shout out to Anton in the building. Trey Taylor also in the building tonight. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Yes, we went back in time. Yes, we realized you guys weren't born yet when all this stuff came out. So you have to excuse the OGs that sometimes we may go back in history. Marcos Antonio Castillo also in the building tonight. Thank you for being here as well. So we went back a little bit, but certainly. Two questions I want to raise, just based on this tournament. One, again, the Cooper Flagg injury. How significant that you think that's going to be in terms of the Duke's chances of certainly going to their certainly one of the favorites to go to the Final Four, being the number 1 seed. What do you think their chances are, or how healthy do you think he can go in this tournament? And the second thing I wanted to talk about was North Carolina. I think that was a big thing going in. Their record against tier 1 quad 1 teams is like 1-10, and so a lot of people were saying why should they be in this tournament? But my thing is, as long as you're going to have people deciding and getting in a room, that smoke-filled room, and deciding, you always going to have those favorites. And it's like me and Trey, we go back, so we remember when Duke Carolina became a thing. And whether or not they're going to be good or not, it's still good for ratings to have Duke and Carolina in the building or in the tournament. They could possibly meet up in there. That's always going to draw ratings. That's one of those legendary matchups. So want to get first your thoughts on the Cooper Flagg injury, and what do you think? How do you think that affects Duke's chances? And secondly, on North Carolina getting a bid despite their woeful record against quad 1 teams going into the tournament. So Dante, I'll start with you, and we'll pass it around.
I'll be honest. You can take my comment. You can take Trey Taylor's comment and be like, to be honest, even though I'm fond of North Carolina basketball, I grew up watching those rivalries. It's good for business. And I agree with you as well. If there's no Cooper Flagg, then the Final Four chance, not only is their Final Four chances cooked, but what's cooked is the ratings drop. Like, people are going to watch the first weekend for sure. They're going to watch in the second weekend if enough teams are there. But going in deeper into it, the intrigue of actual star, like the building of stars, as you said, Trey, you're on top of it tonight. You can't really build the stars, or you build them for 1 year and then they're gone. Even that's gone if Cooper Flagg leaves. And I want to say, I know the guys from Rutgers are some guys that could be star level. And it always helped me growing up. Let me figure out, I may not have seen all the college games. I watched more at the end. Let's see who the prospects are on the big board. Let me see them in the tournament. Let me see against the best of the best, against other tournament-ready teams. And I used to like to compare guys. You don't really get that now. I mean, you get a guy like, even the guy from Texas, he might be in around, Trey Johnson, but it's the stars not being around in the tournament for a long time. That hurts. That's why you kind of we get hyped up when we turn in for March, but we're not turning in other times. So
exactly.
I don't.
Yeah. Coach, what's your thought on, again, Cooper Flagg injury and Carolina getting the bid? Should they have gotten in? Should they have been in the NIT team in your view? Or as has been said, is it just good for business?
Just like everybody said, without Cooper Flagg, Duke may not make it out of the first weekend. Without him. He and here's the difference between a player like a star and regular players. A star doesn't need to be coached to be a star. He's coming in dominating. He's coming in averaging 15, 16 points as a freshman. And he's leading his team to win. Those are, few players, few far in between. Some develop in their second and third year, and I think that's what colleges always be great for. But North Carolina, they had 20-something wins. It's in the ACC, a strong Power 5 conference as far as basketball is concerned. They have a lot of suspect losses, which is true. But North Carolina, I could a couple of good, because the one guy had a game last night where he hit a record threes. So he could go on and take them. I think they're going to run into a juggernaut, though. They play somebody real tough, so it may not last long. But it's the ACC. The SEC got too many. It don't make no sense.
SEC got a lot of teams.
That makes no sense.
They said they got so many in. I've been hearing just because the ACC didn't have as strong as the year as it normally had.
It still makes
They
no
kind of
sense.
picked up some, but
Yeah, so it seems like the SEC, at least on the basketball end, I mean, they're not as dominant on the football end anymore. It seems like the Big Ten is dominant. The Big Ten is certainly in the college football. Big Ten is dominant now. In the last
2
couple of
years.
years,
Yeah,
have
they had
proved that.
2
Yeah,
years.
well,
They had 2 years.
Game
They
about
got-
yesterday. So now it's definitely the SEC in basketball. They seem to be dominant on that end. So definitely getting started. I know North Carolina, they did win their opening game. So definitely they're going to be a factor going in. But first, I want to say thank you to CJ again, as always, for the $2 super chat. One and done, and the G League has killed college. It absolutely did. Because again, like I said, for us old guys like me and Coach, going back to those days when you had Georgetown, St. John, and again, shout out to St. John, shout out to Rick Pitino. This is I believe, his 6th team that he's taken to the NCAA tournament. So I mean, again, the guy, for all of his flaws, for all of the scandals, y'all all about the scandals, had the woman on the restaurant table and all that kind of stuff. My man's a dog, but look, he can coach his butt off. And, he's got St. John's relevant again. So, again, you got Houston, you got St. John's, all relevant from back in the day. They're certainly playing meaningful basketball. So, congrats to St. John's for getting back to the stage. And Pitino making St. John's relevant today, because you got to go back to Louis Carnesecca and the sweater that he used to wear back in the day. That they might not know what we're talking about here.
I know
Shout out to them, Syracuse, Dwayne Pearl, Washington. All them dudes from back in the day, man. So shout out to them. But definitely looking forward to this tournament. You guys have it too early for picks, or you guys kind of got it? 'Cause I haven't even filled that bracket.
I'm still doing I've been busy. I'm still doing my bracket, and it's just like I've done some of it, but it's just kind of like I'm looking at the rest of it. CJ, Trey, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate y'all. I see y'all on the same page with me tonight. But
Hold on. I'm gonna address this comment with Trey. Trey, even today, I can take you on the court and throw finger rolls all in you all day.
Hey, the shot is the last thing to go. Look, can't run and jump anymore.
And you can't do none of that. Ain't none of that. Now, hey, I'm Coach Ferg because I'm a player before I'm a coach. So I'm gonna give you 30 good minutes, and I'm 12-2. You might get 2 buckets.
Hey, Trey, if Yale goes to the Final Four, you will be a millionaire, sir. Absolutely.
But we ain't gonna do that, Trey.
Yeah. Tennessee, they got a shot. Tennessee, they got that squad. They got a shot too. So
if I say a team right now that's possible, capable, I would go with Auburn. Auburn is big and they long and they tough.
Experience. Yeah. They got that old lineup, man. They was talking about the average length of their starters, and it's just like, yeah, they have an older team, but that's kind of the way of college, and that was happening before the transfer portal, because guys were either transferring and sitting out, or however it was going, coming from the JUCO ranks. And when they run it, they use that eligibility, and those guys are veterans and they know how to play ball. Whereas when it went to the one and done to the excessive amount, the young teams were getting put out early. So yeah, college. And I will say this about college. I wish that the college basketball and the NBA work more together. You see the collaboration from the NFL and the NBA. I mean, the NFL and college football. They kind of work together. They kind of be like, hey, let's make it easier a little bit for both sides. But right. I think in this NIL world, if they do it right, it'll benefit the college basketball to get guys to stay a little bit. But I'm still looking forward to the tournament though, just to see. I haven't seen a bunch of college, but that excitement, and then I'm off tomorrow, so I'm gonna be able to watch like wall to wall the games. That's the best day, man. Best 2 days.
So I have a question for y'all, right, in reference to what Dante mentioned as far as the NIL, right? We know not every college player is going to the NBA, right? I was averaging. I averaged 17 points a game without 3-point shot. I'm good though. I can get into it, Trey. I ain't gonna get into my history, man. It's in the library. Y'all gonna read it.
I think it was he saying now. What you guys play one-on-one now? Who winning? Y'all play one-on-one now. Who win?
I still would get him. Brother Bennett. My stuff is on microfiche. You know what I'm saying? But to your point, though, saying, okay, you all have two sons, right? 4-star, 3-star, get a full scholarship. And he's great academically, probably be average or better, you know what I'm saying? And they come with him and hit him with some of them NILs for 400,000 and 500,000, 300,000 or whatever. Do you, the NBA is a possibility. Would you recommend go ahead? Okay, let's just say by his junior year, he's still a second, third rounder. Mm. Do you pull a LeBron James, or do you say, go ahead, son, go on, get this degree and make this money, then get your extra year and graduate, maybe your junior year and go ahead and go? Or do you say, come on now?
I'm staying. I'm telling him to stay just because I heard this and I totally agree with him. I was listening to Bomani Jones podcast, and he was like, sometimes you got to realize that extra couple 100,000 or that extra money, it's not really worth it. Like they were showing the kid, I think it was from Kansas State. He was just shook up after the game, and they were talking about, hey, man, in the comments, you got this money, and just kind of going at him. And he was just like, he was had a rough season, but you came for the NIL check because, you know, the guy in the comments was like, he's set for life. That money's not going to set him for life, but more than likely, he's not going to go play pro. So he's trying to get what he can. If you stay at a certain institution, I'm not saying you got to stay at the, and I ain't taking a dig at any mid-major conference.
Second rounder.
But if you stay, and go 4 years at a strong institution, I mean the Blue Buds, those programs are solid programs. You're a made man there, especially if you win big. You can come back, get car dealerships. You got to think of the long haul. But sometimes athletes aren't always thinking about, hey, I'm not good enough. And sometimes people aren't honest enough. If they're telling you you're a second rounder and you're a junior, you know, hey, you may as well stay the 4th year like the guy from North Carolina, Baycott. He stayed an extra year, and he's a legend. He was making big NIL money. And, you know, I don't think he was drafted or even G League or anything like that. So you make that money. Maybe you play overseas, but you're a made man in North Carolina. That still means something. And I think it's hard for guys to not see that. And it's tough. That's why I would say if you have a good father in your life or male figures or just people who sound decision makers that aren't just like, hey, you're the best, go a whole bunch of yes men, that's what will benefit these kids. And I think we'll see it as time goes on because this is so early in the NIL. And we'll eventually see guys saying, I'm not like RJ Davis. He didn't go off to the draft, but he's from making that Final Four run a few years ago. And I mean, known for you were on the team that beat your rival and put them out forever. You beat them on the last game with all the pomp and circumstance at Duke, and then you knocked them out in the Final Four. You were a part of that team. He can always come back and be the man. And I think guys need to recognize that.
Absolutely. Shout out to CJ. He's got his son swinging like Ken Griffey Jr. I'm saying baseball is the bag. We talking about we're gonna get into the NFL and all that kind of stuff. Baseball, you talking $500, $600, $700 million bags there. I mean, that's a different level over there, man. But
different level, and every boy should start off with a bag and saying, man.
Yeah, for real. That's definitely where it's at. But let's switch over certainly to the NFL. So obviously we got the big news that came out. So again, the bank got broken again, but nobody I think was expecting this. You knew obviously Jamar was going to be the next one up to get his money, and he definitely got his bag. He set the market again, $40 million plus for 4 years. But then they offered Higgins $115 million. So I'm like, where's the money? I mean, they have the worst defense in the NFL. It seemed like they've done very little to improve on that side of the ball. They had no problem scoring last year, and I guess they want to kind of keep that going. It's certainly an exciting part of the game. Joe Burrow, I'm sure he was behind a lot of this. You know, he was demanding that, you know, certainly he wants to keep his guys, but I don't know where you're going to have the money to bolster your defense when you just tied up so much of your money, so much of your cap to these two players. So again, obviously the bank got broken again with these guys. What are your thoughts on this? Start with Dante on this record, the record deal for Chase and the record deal for Cincinnati. The fact that they opened up the bag so much for these two players.
I fully agree with the deal for Chase. The only thing I'll say with the Chase deal is similar to like how my Cowboys do. You probably paid it a year too late. You should have taken care of it last summer. And I think that, I mean, obviously it did not affect his play, but him playing so well and already being such a great player, that ensured that he was going to get this type of deal. And I will say I will never slight them for making the deal with him. Steve Higgins, to franchise tag him last offseason and tie up that money, because once you franchise tag it, you can't massage it or anything.
Right.
So that's locked in. Then to do it again and not to sign his deal beforehand. His deal wasn't affecting his. You know that you're not that level of player, but I guess the $30 million was a sticking point. They got it right under at 28. I just don't see why you don't transition tag him and make it happen. Okay. Now,
Yeah, that's why I said Joe. I think Burrow's behind this. Joe was like, "Look, I want my guys." Yeah.
If you trade the guys that your star quarterback likes, star quarterbacks don't come around often, and they damn sure don't come to Cincinnati. So now you're dealing with a pissed off quarterback, and that's, you know, we see how it can get toxic in Cincinnati. And, you know, we saw that with Chad Ochocinco and Marvin Lewis in the game. So I don't think he wants that, but there's no way in hell. I'll tell him straight up, I'm bringing back Chase, no problem. We'll get you another secondary receiver in the draft, even sign one, but there's no way in hell I'm bringing him back at 28. And so you're paying, you know, Joe Burrow what you're paying him, and then Chase and Higgins. It's just like everything's just so lopsided with the way you balance your salaries. I don't agree with it at all. And I'm with you, Trey, on this one. I would have definitely made one trade. Not two, but I definitely would have traded Higgins.
Mm-hmm. Coach?
A lot of it, man, just come down to bad GMs and bad ownership, in a sense. You know, for them to spend all their money on two players, and, you know, it's clearly that they all in on Joe Burrow. They all in. He's the next Tom Brady of the NFL, and Cincinnati they're hoping that it's there. But if they don't have money for defenders, good defensive back, couple of linebackers, defensive tackles, Trey said they got to put up 40 points. And Joe Burrow, we already see that he's very fragile.
Mm-hmm.
He's very fragile. One more injury could possibly be his career.
Right, right. And you know, Trey was mentioning Buffalo. I mean, certainly their quarterback, certainly a lot more mobile, tough guy in the pocket as well. So again, they've certainly been able to, you know, replace the talent there that he had. But I think when you have such a, you know, a stationary target like Burrow, who is prone, he likes his comfort zone, and I think they certainly accommodated that. Again, shout out to CJ again, $5 super chat. Question for the panel. What's 70% of the salary cap going to Jamar and Higgins? Can the other 50 players on the roster who are making food stamps make up the slack? They basically said that Cincinnati said, "Look, you better make it work. You better make them pork and beans and that fried bologna. You better make that work. You better make that government cheese work, because they've tied up all their money there." So I have no idea.
And they could make up the slack as a team, but to that point, you know, this is an opportunity for a player to have breakout years.
Yeah.
And go on and get that money. So it could happen, but it's going to take Burrow, Higgins, and Chase to be leaders. They're going to have to be leaders on the field, you know, and you can't go into it like a diva, you know, and separating yourself. You're going to have to bring in your linemen. Hell, get their ass gifts, you know, something, man, because they're going to be looking over at y'all like, man, we're getting hundreds of thousands. I got.
And they got, again, their top defender, Trey Hendrickson, who they haven't re-signed yet. So that's going to be a problem. If you let him go, then, you know, so you know the draft is going to have to be all defense. But
defense.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to. But I'm just saying. But, you know, you're going to have this front-loaded team with a bunch of rookies in second years on your defensive side of the ball. So it's definitely going to be a challenge. Remember how your parents gave you $5 and you needed 10, and they told you to make it enough? That's the Cincy front office right now. Facts. So Mike Brown had no, like I said, I don't, like I said, Jamar, yes, I think you had to keep one of him, but I think the draft, and I think this is going to be a fairly decent, you know, sort of combine. You got some decent receivers coming out in the draft. I think you could have, you know, certainly made a choice there. I don't know you had to pick both of them, but I think Jamar, I don't think you could afford to lose him. And you probably could have got like a third round, because I know the Steelers were actually interested in T. Higgins. You probably could have got him. I know they paid the big money for man from Seattle, But they probably Metcalf, but you definitely could have I think they could have settled for that deal, and you probably could have did it with a third rounder for T. Higgins versus a second rounder, which now the Steelers don't have. But speaking of defense, the next I guess breaking story. So talking about breaking the bank. So you got Derek Stingley Jr., who also just broke the bank, 3-year deal, $90 million. The deal to stay with with Houston. So again, that's a big deal, but it makes sense. I mean, obviously, all these wide receivers getting this bank, $30-40 million seems to be for these top receivers. It only goes to show that obviously these defensive backs that have to cover these guys, that there's going to be a premium in those guys here. So you got Patrick Surtain II, $77 million over 4 years, and then you got J.C. Horn, 4 years, $72 million. So again, these guys, certainly are starting to get their pay as well. And so it just doesn't, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, some of these guys are second generation. I think at least 2 of the guys are. Horn and Stingley are. But yeah. So again, so here's what
Stingley's one too.
So Mr. Bennett, in these salaries, right? I know I can see the projected. I think the other is the guaranteed of those salaries. Is that it? Because you got projected like 4-year $96 million, but the guaranteed to be $77 million.
Correct.
That's
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. So 4-year, $100 million, $72 million guaranteed, and essentially Derek Stingley's contract is fully guaranteed. So that's some serious
guaranteed.
So absolutely they're doing their thing. So again, shout out to these guys. Yeah, he deserved more money for that, no doubt. And 7-0 chief for a lockdown corner, absolutely. So
what I'm saying that is that front office probably was proactive, knowing that it's going to go up. And sometimes guys, and I know different players, like even the Jamar Chases, the Bengals fans are like, why don't they get the deal done? Sometimes the player or the player's agent is dragging their feet so that they get the huge deal. Because I want to say the agent, I think for J.C. Horn, David, I'm going to mess his name up. I had it earlier. But he's the same agent for a number of different big clients that's been getting the bag this offseason. And I know he's Michael Parsons' agent too. So he's brokering these deals, and he's full on knows what's going on. I heard that guy's a Mulligattor, David Mulligattor. He is a bulldog in the negotiating room. So I don't know if Surtain maybe needs to get with his agency, or next time hold out and wait to the very end. But he definitely is worth every penny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was also mentioned that by Anton again, Sting's actually 3rd generation. So I get is he related to that player for the Patriots? Stingley, who got paralyzed. I think I want to say that's his. That might be his grandfather. I need to double check that, but I know that was I think Jack Tatum hit him, and that was like the end of his career.
I'm familiar with the play. I just never remembered the guy's name.
Yeah. So I think it was Darryl Stingley. Played for the Patriots back in the day, and Jack Tatum, who's known for just knocking guys out. You want to talk about beast on the field. Why now? Interesting. Why he's not? I guess maybe because of that. That's why he's not a Hall of Famer. But at the time, you want to talk about in the '70s, the most intimidating defensive back ever was oh my gosh! I mean, laying dudes out.
Dante, back then they could catch you in the air and put that hand. They can knock you out of the air.
Now, see what the thing is. Those are the clips that we came up on as young kids, and be like, your daddy, your uncle say, "Hey, this how you play football." So that's where the gap. I want to say players is probably my age is like, "Oh no, you can't hit like that anymore." It's like that's what I grew up on. That's why you get guys where it's just like, "Hey, to get suspended so much," because like that's what I've seen my whole life. So no, I did not know he wasn't in the Hall of Fame. That's crazy.
Yeah. But he was monster. I know him and the Raiders and the Steelers back in the day. That was like the Steelers and Ravens, which we're more used to now. Now it's just black and blue ball. I mean, it was like you had criminals out there playing, man. It was no joke. But moving on to the next block of the NFL story. So we got Shedeur Sanders. There was a scout who had reported last week. I don't think we got into it last week, but there was a scout who basically was talking about Shedeur, talking about how arrogant he was and whatnot. And I know that some of these teams they do these tactics to drop a player's value so that the player falls to them in the draft. It's still projected that Shedeur should go maybe number 3 to the Giants unless Aaron Rodgers signs him. We'll get into Rodgers in the last block. So I think his last 2 teams. I think Minnesota's out of the running. They said they're going to go with their young guy, and so you got the Steelers, who I don't want. I think that guy's a team obliterator. And in fact, let's just deal with it now. So I don't want Rodgers. What he did to the Jets was criminal. And I think that, and again, he wants to go on his ayahuasca retreats and whatnot. You even have a man, Cam Hayward, came out on his podcast and basically said, look, you want to be a Steeler or you don't. And if you don't, keep it stepping. I don't want to go on ayahuasca retreats with you. I just want to know, do you want to play for this team or not?
Yeah,
and yeah. So again, we'll look. I'll run it with this. That's why I got my banner in Mason We Trust. Look, I'll run it with Mason Rudolph this year. Obviously, this is a 1-year thing. You draft your quarterback either this year or next year, and you just run with that. But I don't want he wants $45-50 million a year to play. So again, I'm not a fan of Rodgers coming to the Steelers, and I think even with Tomlin and those guys there. I think, I don't know if football is the most serious thing on his mind, but between him and the Giants, those seem to be his 2 options since Minnesota, they decided to go with McCarthy at quarterback. So he's out the running. But honestly, I found the Steelers, I just want to make the move. And we saw, look, he's one Achilles tear again from all that money going down the drain. So I don't think it's worth it. But what do you guys think about Aaron Rodgers? What do you think about his prospects? Should he go to either one of those teams, or should you just hang it up? Since it seems like no other team seems to be interested at this point.
I think he should stay over there. What was it with that retreat? He needs to make that retreat like 3 months and just don't come back, man. Just stay over there with the retreat and come back in enough time to do your bits with Pat McAfee. I mean, at this point, I don't want to see as much as he's tormented my team. I don't want to see another legend just come out there and limp and just look, hey. It's just like, I know it didn't end on the best note, but just sometimes you got to suck it up. Everybody doesn't get very few people get the Elway, the Peyton Manning, even Brady messed his up. He probably should have retired after that last ring. But yeah, just go ahead and, limp off, man, because I don't see it. And then my thing is, it's at the point where it's Favre, where you're a great player, man. I'm tired of hearing about you when it's just like, it's so much nonsense. And it's like, it used to be the juice was worth the squeeze. It's not worth the squeeze anymore. When you're making those amazing throws, because the mobility is shot. The arm is there, but the mobility is shot. And the way he got sacked at one time, it was like, everybody thought he was out for the season. And it was just like, it wasn't. He's just old. It's just every time he gets hit, you're worried about it. So, and I say kudos and props to Minnesota for saying, hey, we got a young quarterback. Let's just go ahead and go with him. And you said Brady messed up what? He messed up the ending to walk off on top. Because my thing is, he's still at that last season with Tampa Bay. If you go and look at it, that team wasn't really good, and he was pretty washed. That was the one time. Well, one of the other times that you looked like he was washed and he never made a comeback. He was washed in like 2018 and he bounced back from there to play really well. He didn't really bounce back that last year. You could tell it was over.
Right. Yeah. And certainly, like I said, Rodgers, like I said, I think it's probably done. I mean, unless the Giants. Now, again, the Giants, let's move to Shedeur. So, again, I think I was looking at Mel Kiper's draft board. He's projected number 3. Giants are picking number 3 to go to the Giants. I think that'd be good for him. But, certainly the elephant in the room is that, again, you had the scout last week talking about that Shedeur, again, anonymous, didn't say who he was, but putting out there that he was an arrogant player. And, to me, it just seems like it doesn't matter what teams, whether it's from Jackson State to Colorado, it just seems like this shadow of prime seems to follow. And you typically have these 2 camps. You either hate Deion Sanders or you love Deion Sanders. There doesn't seem to be any wiggle room in the middle. And even now it's even to his sons where people are saying that, hey, the juice may not be worth the squeeze there, because it's not so much about Shedeur. It's like, do you want to actually deal with Prime? And so, so a lot of these guys are putting information out there about his character that is definitely at play. So, Coach, you got a lot in mind.
That's a bunch of crock. Deion said early before the season, like, he don't want his son going to the Giants. Now, all of a sudden, mysteriously, he's in position to be drafted by the Giants. Right. Which, if they choose a quarterback, that's them. However, they have the worst coach for a quarterback. He done had 2 or 3 quarterbacks come through her. He does not know what he's doing. Mm-hmm. He's one of the worst coaches in the league. Yeah. He's one of the worst coaches in the league. Shedeur going there will kill his career. I'd rather him go somewhere and sit behind somebody on their way out for a couple of years if they're going to do that. Mm-hmm. But to go to the Giants, he'll have to learn on the fly. Now, maybe he could be a franchise-type quarterback. He has very good accuracy. He knows how to move like a Tom Brady in the pocket. And we see that he has an arm. So, I don't know what people look for in a quarterback, but if he can move around in that pocket, he's a quarterback. And he's accurate. And he can throw 70 yards down the field. But the Giants, for a little reporter to say that, hey, he probably, sometimes they test you. And he's confident in his game. I would not tell a player, great, go to the NFL and not talk about how good you are. That makes no sense. Players understand that. You never heard Michael Jordan say, I don't think I'm that good. No, I'm the best. Mm. That's how, when you want to go to that level, you have to think that way. But it's just and
again, the kid is a clean kid, no record, nothing. Right. The only thing you can hold him for is that watch thing he does with the watch. That's it. But come on.
But the watch,
and that's a young kid just having fun.
He got fined in the NFL. He got fined because, you can't have us. But at the same time, he's a kid. That's all we can hang the head on. Like, oh, he showed a watch. Oh, I wish I had that watch too. That watch is probably worth $2 million.
But this has always been the thing between black and white players. Now, Baker Mayfield, all that stuff he used to do on the field, the flag planting, all that stuff he used to
Manziel.
Do. Yeah. So this kind of thing. So again, it's people want to paint these narratives, but let's talk about where you think he may fall if he doesn't go to the Giants, or if they say no to the Giants. I don't think he'll go above Cam Ward. I think going into this, and it's not a deep quarterback job. Yeah, he's going to be number one coming out, and then so if Shedeur doesn't go there, where do you think Shedeur goes? Just given the draft order and the teams that need QB, I don't think he's going to have like a Marino type of again, I'm going back in time again, guys. So again, I know I'm going before you guys were born. I don't think he's going to have a Dan Marino type fall, which again to this day I think is the Steelers' biggest draft mistake ever. You had a chance to get a local Pittsburgh kid, went to University of Pitt, Dan Marino, and you pass on him because you thought that an aging 35-year-old Terry Bradshaw was still going to be your guy, and we see what happens with that. So it set the franchise back 20 years, not drafting Dan Marino. But that being said, where do you think, as far as the draft order, where do you think he will fall in the, where do you think he'll land?
What's 4 and 5? Who's drafting 4?
I'm about to bring it up now.
I got it right here. New England is 4. They just took their quarterback. 5 is Jacksonville. They have their quarterback. Number 6 should really be, if he's not taking that 3 by the Giants, which will be crazy. I know that the Las Vegas Raiders just picked up Geno Smith. Let Shedeur sit. Let's make it normal again about guys sitting for a little bit.
No,
if you feel like they need to.
So
I mean, he's not sitting. I understand that, but if he goes to the Raiders, either you let him sit or you make another trade for Geno. So, but I don't think it's likely because they picked up a guy. The Jets, they picked up Justin Fields, gave him a contract. Carolina doesn't need a quarterback. The Saints honestly need to make a serious choice.
Yeah, because I don't think Derek Carr's not going to take you that far. I could certainly see you pick.
That'd be a good place for him.
I could see that.
That definitely.
But you know what's something else? And I put it in that link, and I couldn't find a better link for it from that podcast with Bomani Jones. What they were saying is, hey man, this guy had a father that played in the NFL. He knows where he doesn't want his son to go. What if he's going in there and with some of the teams, he is purposely interviewing bad with the teams where it's like, don't draft me, because he's trying to play his hand. So their way, like you said, if he falls to a team like I'll say it, Lamar Jackson, it wasn't by his own doing, but he fell to a really good organization at 32. And look what happened with the infrastructure they were able to put around him. What I've also heard is this from evaluators, his traits are not, other than his ability to be accurate, his traits aren't special. His traits as a physical, he's not super big. He doesn't have the laser rocket arm, and he's not super athletic. So I will say is those are relative things, but upstairs, his father has trained him since a young age to be a pocket passer, to think above the shoulder, because he trained with Brady at a young age. And, under the Brady type of system. So I was like, a guy like that has that stamp and that's been that way, I'm willing to bet on that guy. And it's not arrogant to say, hey, you're going to be mad if you didn't draft me. You're going to be upset. It's okay if you pass on me. And I like that kind of confidence in my quarterback. Like he said, I'm trying to change culture. He changed the culture at Jackson State. He came and led them to prominence. He came with changed the culture at Colorado, led them from being an absolute dumpster fire. Quarterbacks like that, now true enough, he did have a superstar on the other side of him. He upped the draft stock with his other receivers because he was getting the ball and making sure they made plays. Yeah. Quarterbacks that tend to play in situations where it's not just the Alabamas of the world or the Georgias of the world. Those guys end up being the quarterbacks that are more successful. So it is something to think about. I'm not super sold on him, but I do think he can be a damn good quarterback in the NFL for a number of years.
Gotcha. Shout out to CJ again for another $5 super chat. Anonymous sources shouldn't be allowed in the NFL. Put your name on it or don't say it. Shedeur Sanders is going to be a good franchise quarterback for a decade. Shout out to CJ again for the for coming out with that. So yeah, man. I mean, definitely. I think he is well positioned. Whoever decides to take him on, I definitely think that they can certainly make a splash there. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. But want to move on now. Again, hey, we got a new guest on the show who's going to be dropping his information. How you doing, sir? How are you? Good to see you. Hey, how are you?
Ouch. All right, Malcolm.
Now I got to come back. We can't have a show without talking about your Cowboys here. So, what's going on with the linebacker signing? What's going? Any Cowboy news that you want to entertain us with? Anything? What's going on in Jerry world? We haven't. It's been very quiet. Surprise! I'm very quiet over the last few days. So I'm just curious here. What's going on?
The only thing that's really going on, the most recent thing, is the fact of that coming out that I want to say Cooper Kupp, that Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb both got him on the line. But what ended up happening was the money was too much for the Cowboys to be interested. And then the other thing, unfortunately, that happened when DeMarcus Tank Lawrence signed with the Seahawks, he made a comment that was a shot. Really, as a fan, I took it as thank you. I took the shot as a shot at the front office, like, hey, they're not going to win a Super Bowl there. And now the only problem with the comment was, hey, you were here for a decade. How did you help us get to the point of winning the Super Bowl? And it was an issue with him and Michael Parsons because they were going at it. It felt like stuff that was pent up, and they were both ready to say it about each other. He's no longer a teammate, so they fired some shots. I didn't love it, but it was one of those things. I understood it. A lot of the teammates, because the first thing Micah said, when he signed was like, basically it's my turn to take the reins. It's my turn, my show. And it's kind of like, it is your show. They're about to pay you as such. I feel like that deal seems like his brother, Terrence Parsons, mentioned something about that deal. They're in negotiations pretty heavy. But I don't think it's too much of nothing. It'll blow over. I don't think we even play them this year. I don't think we do. So it'll never come to head where it's like, hey, he's playing against his own team. He did. DeMarcus Lawrence did make a plea to the fans and make something up. But it's like he did that. You want to do that part first, was say goodbye to the fans. But as far as when it comes to leadership and culture, he was the guy that had the nickname for the defensive line and this kind of deal. And he didn't kind of lead us in the best way either. He kind of built into the Jerry affluenza of, buying into you're bigger than what you are. And so hopefully we get a reset, a new culture with the new coach. And just, I want them to just make moves and have a good draft. I like that it hasn't been as loud or noisy. And I'm glad they actually made some free agent moves that were, okay, instead of just like. And I'm glad they re-signed the defensive tackle. So,
But what was the buzz over? I guess the controversy you had. Like, I think it was DeMarcus Lawrence left.
Yeah. There was DeMarcus Lawrence, and what he said was, "I'm not going to win a Super Bowl." Then that's what he said. And my thing is, when you're saying that, I don't think you're taking a shot at your brothers, your ex-teammates. I'm feeling like you're taking a shot at the front office, and I want as many shots at them as possible so that they can understand, like, this isn't just fan theories or media stuff. This is players that were on your roster. You just had another player retire, and Zach Martin. That's a sure, basically good lock to make the Hall of Fame. Just like you had, Tyron Smith just left the team, has a good shot at making the Hall of Fame. And they had no type of big playoff success. DeMarcus Ware didn't have any type of big playoff success. And this is all the only thing that's constant, Jerry and Steven, is you guys. Will McClay just got into the mix of having decision-making power. So now it's time for him to get some slack as well. But I'm for anybody giving them slander, so maybe you put the heat to the fire. Because they hear what we say. For them to say in the press conference with the new coach, first of all, for the new coach, for you to bury the lead and the people that like all the noise, no news is bad news. You release that you're hiring a new coach on a Friday evening, and then you go ahead and at the press conference, you say, hey, we got to change our approach at free agency. Because, they've been saying fire Jerry, and Stephen Jones' nickname is Catboy here locally because of how he's always, we got to manage the cap. So I'm cool for any shots. It sucks for the fans that don't understand that, hey, he's taking a shot at them, not at you as a fan. But, whoa, he said, you feel like –
Look, they didn't break the bank with getting Justin Fields $40 million for 2 years. So again, that's not bank busting. And certainly, if Shedeur has to go in there, and compete for the job, and they got a new regime, so they got rid of the old new GM, new head coach in there. So it's not as bad as it was, when Rodgers got there. So it's not terrible. But I think to an earlier point, though, I think that there is buzz that, again, I think the Cowboys pick at what, 12 or 15? I want to say I think they pick at 12. But again, is there potential that they can actually move up and get Shedeur? So again, Coach, what do you think about that? Should they, even though they got the big contract on Dak, should they consider moving up and getting Shedeur if the Jets don't draft them? Then should that be the move that the Cowboys make at this point?
I don't see them.
And who makes that call, Jerry or
Jerry gonna make all the calls, but that'll be a wasted draft pick to get a quarterback this year anyway. Because Dak is gonna have to come back and be Dak, and that's a wasted pick. I would solidify my defense. Dallas gives up a lot of points, and get a couple of get a good running back. I would go running back, and the rest defense, and a lineman here and there. But yeah, I would get a receiver too. Right now, they need a little bit of everything. And to draft it on a quarterback to sit behind Dak Prescott, to me, that's a waste of millions of dollars. I would go get a couple of good free agent linemen. I'll do it, but I would draft a running back and the rest defense.
But to the earlier point, though, that was made, do you agree that Shedeur should sit for a year or two?
No.
What do you think?
That's why they think
he needs to be a starter.
That's why he's going to the Giants, because the Giants, he's coming in as the starter. And they understand his talent. They're just trying to manipulate it away too. Because remember, this is the team Deion said that's the team he don't want his son to go to last year before the season. And now all of a sudden he's got an attitude and he's going to go to the Giants. So,
Well, it depends. If Rodgers does wind up going to the Giants and then they wind up because they're projected to draft Travis Hunter with that pick, so you're going to have Hunter on one side, and then you're going to have Malik Majors on the other. So that's not a bad wide receiver combination to be a part of as well. So, yeah.
They got Travis going to. They draft 4 too.
They draft 3. Giants draft 3rd. So Abdul Carter.
Yeah, they got Shedeur. They got Travis going to the Patriots already. But what I'm saying, if they take Shedeur at the Giants, right?
Right.
Now you're looking at him going to a coach that's not a quarterback coach. We've seen it. He done had 3 quarterbacks, and all of them turned out trash. And
We talking about the Giants?
yes, the Giants.
No, but focus on the Giants. I'll say this. Think about what he had to work with. Think about what he did with. You remember Josh Allen's rookie year? It was terrible. But when Dayball worked with a guy with some ability,
But that's him being an assistant coach, or offensive guy. But you can see with the quarterbacks he had, there was no improvement. They all sort of. Daniel Jones ended up being one of the worst in the league.
We can't say that all the way because
it's his coaching.
He helped Daniel Jones get a new contract, did he not?
But no, his agent did. His agent helped him. They just chose him. They chose Daniel Jones over. If they would have signed Saquon Barkley and took another quarterback, they would have had more wins than Daniel Jones.
Sure. I'll defend Dayball in this. He did good enough to get the job and take them and get them to a playoff appearance. They did win a playoff game, and then they ran into a real team and it got destroyed. But the reason why that was able to happen is because he did have some influence in the way he did the game. He coached them up as best he could. And then they got to a point to where they gave him too much money and gave up on Barkley too soon, and that was a problem. But I just wanted to lay that part out. I do think if he gets a quarterback, I think that would be a bit of a problem for the other teams in the NFC East. And then you're looking at potentially four competitive teams, where it's just like it hasn't been that way in a while. To me, I wouldn't hate it just from the standpoint of, a lot of times when the NFC East wasn't as strong, and then you make it to the playoffs and then you get smacked around. If you're going and dealing with that, it might help you deal with the other teams that are of a better ilk. Because Philadelphia got the best roster in football, clearly, as the champs. So I think iron sharp as iron. But I'm with you, Coach Ferg. That's a waste of money. That's a waste of money the draft you're doing because you just locked in 4 years. So it's like the beauty of a rookie quarterback is it's 4 years and the 5 years with the 5th-year option of this quarterback being basically free as compared to what they are. And if you get that, you can't trade them. You got a no trade clause, and if you cut them, now you're negating the fact that hey, got this cheap quarterback, but you're paying all this debt in. So it just doesn't work out.
Yeah, but you're saying all that, Dante. But the one thing you got to always keep in mind: $10 billion. The Dallas Cowboys are the most valuable franchise in the world. It used to be like DC United in association football and all that. So is it really about trying to put a winner together? Is it really about the headlines? Could you imagine Sador in Dallas, and who knows? A couple years from now, it could be Prime coaching the Cowboys. Isn't this really what it's all about here? Jerry is the biggest showman in the world. I think winning and your fan base has not done anything to dissuade him from anything else but what he does. So is it even fair to say that this isn't a possibility or this would be a quote unquote waste if at the end of the day it's about the bottom line and certainly filling seats and keeping the Cowboys in the conversation, the NFL conversation. So you can't discount that. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Cowboys decide to do this. You can call it waste or not or whatever, but again, they're bleeding money still. But as long as we keep the circus going, does it really matter?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, my bad. Manchester United, not DC United. Manchester United.
I think it would be. I think it would just. I understand it, but my thing is, I think it would be doubling down on who Jerry is and what he does about caring about attention if they got to do it. And it would make my head hurt thinking, I want this young man to succeed. I want him to do really well. And then we're going to put him in this situation where he's got to sit under Dak and then you got to get rid of Dak. I would hate it. I would absolutely hate it. And I hope that.
But will you support it? You can say hate all you want to. Are you gonna be a vocal fan in your outrage over the moves that is gonna be made? Are you gonna make him hurt?
My thing is, I'll give you my perspective on making him hurt. I'll speak out about it. I hope that the big people that are in the media space talk about it because Jerry's so old he still reads the paper. So when you see stuff come out from the newspaper writers, hey man, that's got some teeth to it because he's feeding that information. But the whole, hey, I'm not going to go to the game, I'm not going to watch and those things. Do you remember we were out of the playoffs? That stadium was filled to capacity week 18. You know why? I mean, those people that were there, those were the fans from South America. It's so big. It's almost like his problem is like that movie, Too Big to Fail. So even if these people locally withdraw, hey, the people, then that happens when the people that from other states, they fly in because it's cheaper. They fly in and they catch the game. Oh, I got to see my team at the stadium. It's like a party. And it's like, oh, did they win? But I had fun. And I got to look cool and post on Instagram. So we're almost in a lose-lose situation. I don't do the thing where it's like at one point I was like, maybe I shouldn't buy a jersey or this. And it's just like, my son's 3. It's time to go ahead and get and baptize them and get the jersey for. And I'm not doing that. So it's just like,
I hear you. Coach, what do you think?
Man, Dallas fans, man, they love to hate their team, don't they? They love to talk about them and love to hate them at the same time.
They're gonna be there at the end of the day, though. They're gonna be there.
I mean, they're
gonna be there.
I think it's gonna be some interesting moves once the league really get moving and players start coming back to their teams and working out. I think, especially around the draft time, man, it's going to be some interesting moves, man. They being hush hush about those moves, and I can see a team moving up to get Shedeur. So a few teams out there that need a quarterback.
Yeah.
Giants could be a good fit if they invest in him and not get caught up in the Shedeur got an attitude. You know what I'm saying, and keep it on the field like they do everybody else. But I can see a team moving up. And it'll be a surprise, man, if somebody don't. But I do like him going to the Jets, though. I don't know why. It just seems like even though they got Justin Fields there, he still has some work to do on his passing game, and Shedeur is a far better passer. So, I don't know. That $30 million, $40 million ain't bad. He could be a journeyman quarterback, but he's going to have to improve his passing game.
No doubt. No question.
Yes, they are, Anton. They still America's team. You can believe that.
Kobayashi Maru. You're not supposed to win. For you Star Trek fans out there, Kobayashi Maru is a test that you're not supposed to win. However, Captain Kirk, he reprogrammed it to win, so he kind of cheated to beat the Kobayashi Maru. So that's a Trekker reference right there. But with that, we're gonna. Yeah, I mean they're lifers, so they're not going anywhere anytime soon. But look, you can't argue with the bottom line, $10 billion plus and going up. So they're going to be, certainly a value team for some time. But I think that's all the blocks I had for today, gentlemen. Now we did have one more block. I was hoping my man Mandrell could be up today to entertain this last segment, but I did have a couple. So what I decided to do was, and I he just let me know he couldn't be here, but I might as well share with you guys. So going forward, since obviously you guys know I'm big into boxing, and so I wanted to do sort of a dream matchup segment. And so I'm going back into history. So again, for you boxing aficionados, going back there and picking some matchups that obviously we never would have seen, and who would be the likely winner of those outcomes. So the first one that I had, and maybe we can even pick this up next week when certainly to get his view should he come back. So the first one that I had on the docket was, now this is a battle of the lightweights, two of arguably the greatest lightweights of all time. So you got on the left Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker versus, at the time, he was Money Mayweather, or actually here he was Floyd Mayweather Jr. before he went to Money May, and then he went to the names after that. So two of arguably the best defensive fighters of all time at 135 in their primes. Honestly, that's a tough fight because obviously they're both defensive minded, so you're not necessarily going to see a lot of offense. But I would probably pick Sweet Pea Whitaker in this fight when he was good before he got, when he went to welterweight and whatnot. I don't think he was as good, and when he moved up, plus he had some personal problems. But at lightweight, he was virtually untouchable. You couldn't touch the man. He was so good defensively, and he was a southpaw as well. So I would pick Whitaker in this matchup over Floyd Mayweather Jr. Coach, you go back to that time with me and Dante. You can, if you've seen some of the stuff or go back and watch some of the old fights of some of these guys, you can certainly chime in. But based on your knowledge of boxing, going back in the day with both of these guys, who do you think comes out on top in this scenario? So lightweight, which is I think they were at their best when they were lightweights. So in their primes, who you think takes this one?
I don't know, man. From what I came up and seen a lot of Floyd Mayweather, so I'm more partial to that. And I've seen him in like the heyday, and I've seen people go, like post the clips when they, that a lot of times they talk about that fight was too late for him and Pacquiao, but then they show the old clips, and it's just like, nah, man, this dude was really, really outstanding at his peak before he got into, like, just say the picking fighters. And I don't get into all of that since I'm not as deep in boxing, but I'm gonna lean with Mayweather on that. Like you said, I will go check out some more, like you say, Mr. Whitaker there, just to kind of see what he was doing in the range.
Yeah. Coach, who do you think comes out on top?
I would say, this is an interesting matchup, man. I saw both of them in their prime.
Right.
Like you said, Sweet Pea had a little bit. I would go with Sweet Pea. Just because this little pose right here with Floyd Mayweather. It's a little zesty. The gloves look bigger than him, though. But look how big the gloves are. The gloves are big, though, ain't they? I'm just saying. But Floyd, he's always going to be one of the best to me. But in head-to-head matchup, I would go with Sweet Pea because he had a little bit more. He had a little bit more offense too. He knew how to counterpunch very well, even though but he had a little more power than Floyd, though.
Yeah. I know one move he used to make, he would actually get like in a squat position, and guys be hitting down, and then he would make a miss still. I mean, again, defensively, he's probably the most defensive-minded boxer that I think that I've ever seen. That, again, it was just very difficult to land a good hard shot on him because of his defensive prowess, and he had power when he needed it. A lot of his fights was considered boring because he would just kind of go to like 12-round matches. I think Floyd Mayweather at lightweight, I think, was more exciting a fighter. He was knocking out guys. He definitely had a lot more power at lightweight that didn't necessarily transfer when he went up to welterweight and even at 154. But certainly, the Philly shuffle. That Philly defense style that he had to get away from such a shoulder roll. I mean, I think he was better. His dad was also, because I remember when his dad fought. His dad was good at it, but I think Floyd Jr. I think he perfected it when it came to that. The last one I got for tonight, and again, hopefully Mandrell he could come into another because I know he's really big on his boxing as well. Now this one you may automatically come to a conclusion, but again, if you're really into boxing and boxing, that this would be a very tough matchup. Just once you start breaking it down and analyzing it. So my next matchup here is at 160. All right, at 160, Marvelous Marvin Hagler versus James Lights Out Tony at 160. Now, I know Tony lost to Roy Jones. I think they fought at 160 or 168. But again, I didn't think it was a blowaway. But Tony, one of the toughest and one of the craftiest, savviest boxers that I've ever seen. I don't think he necessarily gets enough credit, possibly because of his attitude off the out of the ring. That might have put some people off. But he was a very, very good fighter, even up to cruiserweight. He was a very good fighter. I think, in fact, he even moved up to welterweight. I think he beat Evander Holyfield, I think at one point. So very good. And obviously Marvin Hagler, obviously lost that controversial fight to Sugar Ray Leonard at the end. I thought he won the fight personally. I thought Ray did a lot of running and he did a little shuffling here or there, but I thought Sugar Ray Leonard pulled that fight out. But again, the Broxton, dude from Broxton, Massachusetts, destroyed everybody he was in the ring with. We all know about the fight with Tommy Hearns, the fight with John the Beast Mugabe. I mean, the guy was unstoppable. You couldn't hurt the guy. It doesn't matter. You could hit him with a sledgehammer. And he would have, so he would have kept coming. So definitely, I think that this would have been a very competitive fight. I still would pick Hagler to come out of it, but it would be more so in terms of will. Both of these guys had indomitable will. And I just think that, this would be maybe a majority decision for Hagler. but I think this would be a much better matchup than people would say just off the rip. Because, again, especially if you go back to the 80s, you remember how dominant Hagler was. But James Toney in the 90s was as good as it got, and I just think that he would just come out on top. So, Coach, you go back to that era of seeing these guys. Who do you think comes out of this one? Again, at 160, because I think Hagler, he only fought it. That's the thing, too. A lot of guys move up in weight. Hagler basically fought his whole career at 160. And so, so again, this is Toney at 160, where I think he was at his best. Who do you think comes out on top here?
Man, again, man, just based off what I've seen of both and, and how Hagler could actually take a solid punch and still seem to dominate a fight. And whereas I seen Toney, he pretty much was dominant, but his competition wasn't boxers like the battles that Hagler had. I would go with Hagler just based off his quickness. I mean, he had everything. When I seen him in the ring, he sort of displayed everything that I saw: hand speed, power, agility, everything, and smarts. Toney, he's a great boxer. You know what I'm saying? He's a great boxer.
Yeah, very I think underrated. I think he just had a lot of skills. He comes from that Detroit background, that Kronk gym, that kind of background. Philadelphia, Detroit. I mean, great boxers and fighters came out of that group, and I think he's underrated in terms of how good he was in his prime when his head was right, especially when he had the motivation. So again, him and Hagler, I think that would have been a great fight. Dante, not sure if you want to add anything here. Do you remember James Toney growing up? Were you,
I remember a little bit of him, but not enough to really like opinion. Like I saw a lot of Floyd fights. I didn't see too much Toney, and then I've only heard about the greatness of Hagler. So I don't want to disrespect either of them. But
go back. If you go back and said a lot of these fights are on ESPN, you can certainly go back. I mean, that's one thing I love about ESPN. They have a lot of boxing from back in the day, and it's not edited or whatever, the original broadcast that you can watch from HBO or ESPN that you can go back and watch on. But we got a question certainly here for the panel. Prime Julio Cesar Chavez versus Floyd Mayweather. I got Mayweather all day. I think with Chavez, again, he was a very easy guy. He came at you. He just kind of broke you down because of his will. I think Floyd Mayweather, especially if you're talking 140, because of his mobility and whatnot, I think he would frustrate Chavez. And honestly, I think he would have an easy 12-round unanimous decision win over Chavez. I just don't think that Chavez could touch him because Chavez, he was a tank. That's why the matchup that I had last week, him and Aaron Pryor, that's two tanks going at each other. So then it's going to be like whose will is going to break. But if you want to talk about him against a legit boxer who could, keep him on his toes and not be able to set up and land, I got Floyd all day on that. Coach, what do you think about that one?
Man, this is a difficult. I would go with Floyd again. Chavez was good, but I think Floyd would get him just based off his speed. And Floyd was a very smart boxer too.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I can say. He didn't take a lot of punches, but he got in there enough to, Chavez. But then I was thinking of Chavez and who did Hagler fight? The other Hispanic guy, no mask. Who's that?
Oh, Roberto Duran. Now that would be all right. So you just added one. So I'm gonna note that one. I'm gonna add that to the we'll talk about that when next week. Yeah. So we'll get that'll be in the notebook there on those two. I'm sure you'd like to get into it there, but yeah, I think that Chavez again, he was a tank. You couldn't hurt the guy, but I don't think you'd have to hurt him. The idea is to the art of boxing is hitting and not being hit, and I certainly think that he would be able to get his hits in and not take the punishment from Chavez, and I think he would come out with the. Chavez, Marcus Antonio Castillo rooting for Chavez, but I just don't think how he's going to hit him. That's my thing, because he was used to landing body shots. and he would just break you down over time until you fell. And I just don't see that happening with Floyd Mayweather, especially at 135 and 140, where he was, again, you got to go back and watch him in the early Floyd. Don't go off of the 147 to 154 Floyd. I think you got to go with, he was his best at 135, 140. He was one of the best that ever did it at that weight. That's why I would say I would pick Sugar Ray Leonard to beat Floyd Mayweather at 147.
Yeah.
But Sugar Ray never fought below 147. So again, it wouldn't. So again, in the lightweight categories, there's very few guys I would pick over Floyd Mayweather Jr.
He dominated that. He dominated that weight class, didn't he?
Totally.
Like everybody else.
Absolutely. Sweet Pea had stronger power base. Counters punches would get Floyd. So CJ's probably going back watching some of the old school, stuff as well. So again, shout out to him. But yeah, lights out, Tony. Too close to I said it's not easy because people come up. Oh yeah, Hagler, especially if you old school Gen Xers like us. Yeah, Hagler will wipe him out. But James Toney was a very, very good fighter. He could have been better again if his mind space was was good. They said just out of the ring, you see, he can be uncontrollable sometimes. But when he, focused on boxing, he's one of the better ones out there. But I think Roy Jones got into his head a little bit, he wasn't as focused as he could have been. And again, Roy's, in that fight, he was very defensive in that fight as well. He wasn't the Roy that we're used to seeing. So, because he couldn't be, because James was, again, a very, very good fighter. Y'all need to call these sports Hagler. Call in on these sports shows. Hagler was a monster. Yeah, we're going to probably open it up, especially for you guys who've been coming in and certainly supporting on a regular basis. We can certainly drop in if you guys. In fact, why not do that now? As a matter of fact, if you guys want to come up real quick, we got about 10 minutes left in the show. If anybody wants to come up, have a comment before we close out the show. If you guys just want to hop up real quick and say hi. Again, we appreciate you guys. Trey, Anton, CJ. Certainly, we appreciate you guys coming out and supporting us, week to week, and certainly from CJ for the super chats. Really appreciate you guys, coming out and making the show what it is. And again, we just want to make the show better and to, just kind of, keep putting the great content out there. So really appreciate you guys and everything that you do supporting the channel. But again, if anybody wants to come up in the next few minutes, just say hi to us. We can certainly do that. And again, I'm going to keep this going as long as, we can have some content. Again, we get some other guys, again, if you guys are boxing fans out there who want to, chop up, I love going back at the retro, looking at the classic fights, especially. I love doing that. So, if you guys want to be a part of that, let us know or give us some ideas on fights that, you want to analyze or dream matchups that you might have thought about that you would want to see, that you might want to see analyzed. Certainly you guys can come up and do that. But certainly we're got a few minutes left. We want to start our wind down. So I'll, start with Dante, and then we can kind of go around the room. But again, if anyone comes in the next 5 minutes, so you come up, say hi, make your points, and then we can certainly close out the show. So Dante, any final comments on your end?
Man, I want to say one thing. I know I was going to speak on it do a full video on it, but one thing that's been kind of giving me a little bit of pause here lately, I know that since the Lakers got Luka Doncic, that it was like, hey, they don't really stand a chance. Now going up against some of the best, stronger teams, you see, hey, they're pretty competitive. They look like they're gonna make a chance. Now we're getting a heavy shift on the LeBron PED thing, and it's just kind of like, okay, we understand it. He's 40, he's been playing a long time, so it's that. But it's kind of like, a lot of people are kind of going conspiracy theory type into that. And it's just like, at first it was, okay, he's not the GOAT. It's just kind of like we had this show conversation years ago. Whoever you believe is the GOAT, you're not going to convince the other person is not. So if you have, what's going on, brother?
What's going on, fellas? How y'all doing?
Doing good, sir. Good, do it. Jersey in the house. Jersey stand up. What's good?
Exactly. Sorry, my own little one. She wanted to be in the picture and say hi.
That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. What's going on, man? What you got? What you got for us?
I've been busy in everything else. The boxing thing, I like the fact you guys are talking about it because a friend of mine who's also on YouTube, Max V, shout out to him. He's a big boxing fan too.
Right.
and we would have great discussions on some great fights from back in the day. The reason why I say too close to call between Hagler and Tony, I mean, some guys can go the distance.
Yeah.
They can go 12 rounds. They can go 15 rounds. It will go
Right.
the distance. And it's
Right.
like, you're not going to find either one of them make a mistake to where they're going to get knocked out. Like,
Yeah.
they're that skilled to where no matter what it is, no matter what they do, you're not going to find a mistake. They're not
Yeah.
going to slip up. They're not going to let their guard down.
Well,
They're
even
not
if
going
they
to slip over their
did,
feet. It's just like, I don't know,
Yeah.
man. It's like,
but the thing is, even if they did, they could take the shot. I mean, Hearn said later on he hit him in that second round with the hardest shots that like literally could almost break his hand.
oh, yeah.
And it's like he didn't move. I mean, he cut him and everything, but he didn't hurt him.
Another
I've
example,
never seen Marvin Hagler nor James Turney hurt. That knockdown that
Exactly.
Roy had him. He was like tripped up. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a legit knockdown. It was a little tap,
No.
and he went down because he was off balance. But I've never seen these guys hurt.
No, and another example on how durable Hagler was as a fighter when he fought Tommy the Hitman Hearns. When they
Yeah.
had those fights, they
Yeah.
was like, those were some fights where it was just like, yo, this is what boxing is all about.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
That this is if you want, and I tell people, if you want to watch boxing, and if you want to know like an example of what it takes to go the distance and fighters that make very little mistakes, I tell people watch Hagler Hearns. I tell them to watch Mickey Ward and Arturo Gotti.
Oh, bloodbath. Yeah.
Yes,
That was
yes.
bloodbath. Yeah. Yeah.
classics.
Yeah.
The best three fights. Those three fights. Those Ward and Gotti had against each other. The best 30 rounds in boxing.
And it wasn't for a title. I don't think there's
No.
any titles on it. Or
No.
it might have been some NABA,
I
some
think like
local
NABL
stuff.
or something.
Yeah,
like
it wasn't like one of the
NABL.
major belts. It was just the purest of the sport. So absolutely, it was definitely there. But yeah, so I want to, like I said, I'm gonna have these segments where we're gonna visit old fights or to have these sort of dream matchups. So as I think of them, or if you think of them, just drop them in the chat.
Not a
And
problem.
we can kind of do that on the fly and chop it up. I know CJ's been good about, who would win this fight or whatever. Keep sending it. I love going over it. And, certainly we get more guys certainly in the boxing end. But again, all these fights, like I said, go to YouTube. I think YouTube is great for, I might not be able to find old football games and basketball games on YouTube, but you can definitely find all the fights. You can find Mike Tyson. There's a playlist for Mike Tyson. Every Mike Tyson fight since his first fight on ESPN. It's a playlist that goes all the way up. You can see all the Mike Tyson fights from back in the day. So definitely you can go back in history and follow and watch that stuff for sure.
The thing about Julio Cesar Chavez is he was the standard bearer for Mexican boxers. He was that standard bearer. And when you look at guys like Roberto Duran, Canelo Alvarez, a lot of other Mexican fighters that came out, like Chavez was the standard bearer.
100%. Yeah.
Take
And he
the hit.
fought everybody. Like,
Yes.
I think he had like 80, 85 fights or something like that. I mean, some crazy boxer, but
Yeah,
he fought
like
everybody. That was,
like he never ran from a challenge. You
No.
wanted to fight him? Good luck.
yeah.
Good luck.
Right.
See what you can do. See what you can do because
Yeah. Now
it was gonna
Canelo,
take
that's a
forever.
totally different beast. He fights all these guys moving up. He's at 168. He wants to fight all these guys coming up from 154. He doesn't want to fight Benavidez and guys in his weight class.
Nah.
And now he's got the audacity to fight. Look, my man coming up from 154. He's a great fighter, but I just don't see how that's favorable. But fight the guys that are in front of you, and that's definitely certainly something that he's not willing to entertain at this time. So I definitely agree with that. But yeah, but Anton. Again, thanks for coming up. Again, we're going to do this again, and we're going to have this as a segment every week. Try to devote 15, 20 minutes to it, where we kind of cover some matchups, and certainly any big fights that do come up. We'll certainly do previews of those as well as those fights come up, and we'll do previews and predictions, and we'll do all that stuff. So yeah, I would definitely like boxing to be a part of that. Now, again, if you guys, Dante, I don't know if you're into MMA. I think MMA is dead. I'm like, and the thing I ask all these guys who are so hardcore MMA, where's MMA going? I mean, who are the stars that's like, oh, I gotta watch that guy? Unless you're a diehard MMA fan, I don't see where the love is for MMA at this point. And where's Dana's getting his new crop of stars? Now Dana wants to get into boxing, But who's going to sign up for his promotion? I don't know. So again,
I'm not big in the MMA, but it's just like I like that format that they built thus far. But I'm with you as far as who's going to be the next crop of people, because I at least as a desert watcher, I knew some of the names of the people. They had good stars, and now you got to see who they're going to go with next.
Yeah, for real. All right, so we're coming to the end of the show. Coach, you want to give us your final closing comments? And then actually, let me give mine before I give you, because I always like to close out the show on you. So obviously, my New York Yankees, obviously they had the World Series last year, but it's been a disastrous spring season so far. Our main pitcher, he's out for the year with Tommy John surgery. All these guys getting injured. Something about these training methodologies, I don't know what's going on. This is preseason baseball. You shouldn't have all these guys with all these injuries that are going on. So again, you used to be able to have an off season. And I think what's happening with all these soft tissue injuries that these guys in the NFL, in the NBA, in baseball are going into the seasons with, it doesn't make sense. It used to be that training camp or spring season that's when you got into shape. They want these guys in shape 12 months out of the year. And I think these guys are not recovering well. So again, I'm going into this year with the New York Yankees where like half their team is going to be on the IR by the time the season starts. And I just wish that somebody would take a look at this and see what could be done about it. But yeah, it's not a good start at all for my Yankees in MLB this year. So again, I may not get into baseball until July is when I start paying attention to it and just think these guys can get healthy and possibly make a run. But that's my closing for the day. But Coach, as always, you can take us out, sir.
A very interesting show today, man. I appreciate you coming up, Anton, man. You know what I'm saying? Welcome back, Dante, man. See you in a minute. Hope everything went well. I mean, you know, this is springtime, man. This is time, man, to get outside, get some spring training, man. Y'all fellas, man, think about your health, man. Think about the family, man. Go to the doctors. You check up on your levels. Make sure your levels is leveling. And, you know, just get outside, man. It's kite season, man. It's time to get out. Everybody get a kite from Walmart. You know, but it's time to get outside, man, and, you know, just rejuvenate. I don't know if y'all got rain coming through, but we're going to go into our spring season. So, yeah, man, just take care of yourself, man. Stay healthy, man. We need y'all around for the next 40, 50 years, man. And teach your kids how to box.
Yeah.
Teach them how to box.
For real. Even in martial, I've had a lot of discussions with martial artists as of late, and all of them are saying at this time, a lot of martial artists don't know how to fight. You can learn a skill, but again, the guys who know how to fight, if you don't have boxing and wrestling in your repertoire, doesn't mean you don't do your forms and katas and all that kind of stuff. But if you don't learn how to fight for real, then all you're doing is just a dance. So a lot of guys now, they're starting to incorporate boxing and wrestling, real wrestling on the ground stuff into the work. Because you need that. Because in the street, that's what you're going to be doing with. I don't care how beautiful your spinning roundhouse kicks are, but that stuff don't work in the street. So yeah, quickest thing, put them down or keep your distance from them.
A lot of guys with the MMA background, like in the early years, all had wrestling backgrounds. A lot of those guys like Chuck Liddell, guys like Randy Couture, guys like I'm trying to remember, Bob Ruin. A lot of those guys had some wrestling in their backgrounds, as well as a little bit of martial arts as well. So it was just a little bit of everything, and they just found a way to put it all together. That's basically what it is.
Exactly. But I'm hearing kung fu guys talk about take some boxing. I'm hearing karate guys take some boxing, because again, you can't shadow, you can't fake that. You know what I mean? You can do all the 27 combination moves or whatever, but someone's trying to hit you, you need to be able to, you know, how to not get hit and how to return fire as well. So definitely good stuff coming up. But again, appreciate you gentlemen being here. Shout out to our brother Shawnee, what couldn't be here tonight. But again, hope everything's well with you. Look forward to you being on the show next week. And in the building, where were you, man? We were talking about your Bengals. We had a whole segment to your Bengals that you just missed on out. But shout out to KP from KC5 and in the building. Yeah, you guys gonna have as my man said, you're gonna have an XFL defense. We're going to have an XFL level defense, but a great offense. So good luck with that.
They got to play some defense, man.
Good luck with that. Go to the XFL and see if they got some players who can help you guys out. But with that, again, thank you all for joining us tonight on the One-on-One Sports Show. We'll be back next week. We'll be headlong into the tournament. We'll see what happens in the NFL and all whatnot. Again, we're going to have boxing, again, as part of the show, dream matchups. Look forward to them and whatnot. I'd like to surprise you guys and see what's coming up and whatnot. But again, thank you, Anton, for joining us tonight. For the coach, for Dante, for myself, Mr. Bennett, this has been the One-on-One Sports Show. You guys enjoy the rest of your week. Take care. God bless. And we'll see you next time.
See ya.